Grow up with metal. Nick didn't, Justin didn't. We all come from a punk background. Nick and Justin also came from an early extreme noise, power electronics background. We're talking Whitehouse, Ramley, Nurse with Wound. So, no, the metal influence came later, I guess. Justin, as I say, Justin wanted more of a metallic influence. He was getting into, let's say, the thrash side of metal. Your Slayer, Creator, Sodom, Bathory, Possessed. It was Justin that turned me on to metal. Not Nick, not anybody else. Justin introduced me to thrash and death metal. Prior to that, maybe I'd heard at school some Motorhead records with, kids in my school were either rockers or mods. I was the only punk there. I was the only kid listening to alternative music, that being John Peel, indie, alternative, whatever you call it, and hardcore and punk. So the three of us did not grow up with rock. So if anything, it was the last part of Napalm, really, the metal, if you want to call it. It was hardcore, but the crossover was coming from the extreme thrash bands with the hardcore, with the extreme side of hardcore. So that crossover was there, and that really started to come towards the end of 85 and 86, definitely. So we all grew up with alternative music, basically. But we all shared a passion for the extreme side of all of those musics, all those different categories. I guess living in an industrial city, maybe it did have some sort of influence, some impact, just a way of escaping, basically. The rat race, everything around you, just getting together with some friends and creating this energy, forget everything else around you.
I think any scene is partly coincidental, partly social, partly spiritual. It's a whole combination of factors which lead to a scene coming out of a specific city. Birmingham had always had the tradition of being a metal city, and still does to this day. And I think the fact that it came from that area, and it's more Coventry than Birmingham, to be fair, but the fact is that there was a genuine punk scene up there, an arco-punk scene, crusty punk scene, if you will, from which Napalm Death grew. There was an exchange of ideas, exchange of tapes, a lot of DIY attitude that was going on very much at the grassroots in that city. Why it happened there? Probably because people were bored and fed up and were looking for something a little different, and they found a way forward. But Napalm Death, I don't think, started out as anything other than just a project to keep people from being bored. And here we are 20 years later talking about that project in the most glorious and wonderful terms. Quite remarkable.
But Napalm, from the release of the first record, Scum, things definitely started to take off. I don't think Earache half expected it, the response that they got. They only pressed X amount. I believe they printed 1,500 or 3,000 of Scum. And
how many did it sell eventually?
It still sells. That's a figure that I'll never know, and I don't think anybody will ever know, to be quite honest. A rough figure, it's got to be over 100,000 for sure. And
really?
Don't forget, it's had endless reissues. There's all the different vinyl editions, different CD editions. It's never been tampered with as far as remastered, etc., etc., new artwork. Nothing like that's ever been tampered with.
Is
Thank
that
God.
something you'd like to do? Or?
No. That is the sound, and I believe any recording that's been released. I've never been into this remastered, etc., etc. I see absolutely no point in it. Yes, nowadays you can, as far as remastering goes, boost frequencies, boost the overall volume, let's call it. I see no point in that whatsoever. That's the recording that was caught then, and how it was mastered then. Why change anything?